Okay, good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to this impromptu training tonight. And sorry, I'm running a few minutes late. I want to just talk about PLR. This is going to be something I'm going to be doing here, in our meetup, probably for the last time. I really do want to get to talk about leading online communities and leadership in particular. And we'll be talking about that in future sessions. But I do want to just kind of give you a little insight on uh, what Laurel and I do. And without belaboring the point, I'm not going to talk a lot about what private label rights or PLR is. That's fairly easy to find out. It's fairly easy, fairly definitional. And so I don't want to take up your time with those things. I do want to take some time to kind of talk about some of the use cases. And I think that would be most helpful. And that might even help you to define what it is. So without further ado, let's get into it. You may be here from the PLR show, or you may be here from our Ultimate Insider group. I want to welcome you also. This is the session that I'm going to be doing primarily for um, uh, our meetup here in Central PA. And although, quite honestly, there are people who have joined the meetup who are not necessarily from Central PA, even though most people are. But I just want to welcome you also if you're an Ultimate Insider or if you are from the PLR show. I invited you tonight so that you'd be able to do this here because I will be talking about PLR. So it's going to be most probably even more relevant for you than anyone. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I want to talk about how to use written PLR. As a reminder, we have just released our Servant Leader PLR, Servant Leadership, and you can get that at the plrshow.com/SVLDR. And we will be it'll be an introductory price for about the next 3 days until Friday at midnight PST. So you want to go ahead and get access to that and all of the upgrades that are there, which you will see once you get Servant Leader PLR. I do want to talk about how you're going to use written PLR. And I'm going to talk about this from a different perspective than maybe you've heard. You may have heard me talk about some of these themes before, and some of these themes are going to be familiar to you, even though you might not have heard me use exact words, and you might not have heard me use the exact framework, but the ideas are not going to be new to you, but the perspective may be. And so I'm going to give you a different perspective on PLR and how you should be using it. And I want to start by saying it's just not the medium and it's the brand. And what do I mean by that? Well, for about 20% of online information marketers, expertise marketers, people who market software and who, they are, maybe you sell journals or journal pages or things of that nature. About 20% of the people make a medium work, right? And even though the predominant, number of offers that are made that you probably see that promoted to you by affiliates that you probably see in and around, they're medium-based business models. What does that mean? That means then that you'll learn a medium. So maybe you might learn Kindle or you might learn SEO, or you might learn some aspect of social media, or you might get some software that does some posting for you or builds funnels and all these other things, right? You're learning a medium. So you're not necessarily building a brand, you're kind of learning information marketing from one perspective. And you're learning it from one aspect of it. Maybe it's that aspect. Maybe you might learn YouTube. So you might see a course and you might learn, well, I'm going to learn how to do YouTube or affiliate marketing or AdSense or arbitrage, where you're trying to, buy a service low and sell it high. So you're learning an aspect, right? You're learning a particular part of the trade of information or internet marketing. Or maybe you learn journals, right? That's a big thing now. You learn how to sell journals on Kindle, or maybe you learn how to sell journals on Amazon. But basically, you're learning one aspect. You're learning a medium. You're not necessarily building out a brand. Some people learn Etsy. Now, I'm just giving you some examples. This is not a comprehensive list. I just want to give you a picture of what I am talking about. when I say a medium. So basically, you learn one aspect of how you market and how you generate income online. And so 20% of the people can make that work. Now, I think everybody does actually experience or see an aspect of a medium. In fact, a lot of people who enter information marketing or affiliate marketing, they will enter through a medium. So maybe you might learn, someone you might take a course on affiliate marketing, might take a course on SEO or social media, and you have learned one aspect, right? You'll learn how to generally generate sales with that aspect. And again, so I've just kind of listed some here that are on the screen. You probably have experienced and you may have seen more. So when I say that we're talking about the medium, we're not talking about a brand. So in some cases, if you build a business around things that you do on Kindle, the brand is kind of incidental because what you're doing is you're following a method, you're following a procedure, and the brand almost comes second to what you're able to, what you're able to generate sales in. Basically, with a medium-based business model, you find some element that generates cash flow. You find some element that generates sales, and you really build up and you work around that, right? That's the way about 20% of the people come into information marketing, and they're able to make that work extremely well. And you might see that 20%. And I say 20% because not everybody does that, and not everybody finds success that way. And you may feel like, well, I'm not, I've tried a lot of these different things and I've spent a lot of money, and I've seen like I'm spending a lot of money on shiny objects, but you're not necessarily spending money on a shiny object. You're spending money on a medium, right? So that's why you might feel like you're hopping around because you're basically learning one aspect, and maybe you might try to make that work, but for whatever reason, you personally cannot make it work, even though 20% of the people who enter it can. Right. So just because you're in the 80% doesn't mean you're dumb, doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means you did not make that particular one work. So what happens is you then move on to another thing, right? And so in the past, I think you might have gotten a bad rap, or people will put a bad rap on you, say you're hopping around, you got to stick to one thing, but it really doesn't work that way. You're really trying to learn a medium. You're not necessarily trying to build a brand. And so because you learn the medium and it doesn't work, you can very quickly move over to something else and test that too to see if you can make that work. But basically, the idea is that you find a medium where you want to be interested in and that you can make work, and that you make that work and you build around that. It doesn't really take a brand, doesn't really take necessarily an area of expertise, although you do have to become an expert in the trade that you're working in. Right. So if you decide you're going to be a Kindle author and you're going to write fiction books, and you haven't written fiction books heretofore, and you're going to work on the Kindle business model, you do have to become an expert there. Right. But you don't necessarily have to bring years of experience and expertise in order to make, a business model like that work. Right. So it's a medium-based business model. And so basically, what are you trying to do? Well, you're trying to figure out whether it's YouTube or AdSense or arbitrage, journals, Etsy, social media, SEO, Kindle, you're trying to figure out, how can I generate a recurring income? Now, some people call it a passive income. It's not really that. What it really is that it's income that you generate. You don't have to be there for 24 hours a day. So, even though, let's say, well, you write the Kindle book and you get it up on Kindle and people are making sales and you get paid without having to be there for it. You still have to do the work, and it takes a lot of work. So, it doesn't take a little bit of work. It takes a lot of work to get a medium-based business model working. And so it's not exactly passive, but you don't have to be there when the sale is made. That's really what that means. But you figure out how to generate a recurring income doing something. 20% of the people will find a medium and make that work. So if you haven't found it, it's either because you haven't tested and found the right thing. But if you're not that, you're probably just not part of that 20% that can make a medium work. What happens is, once you figure out a recurring income, what's the pattern? And you have seen this, right? You've probably seen this in, your circles that you run in. If you frequent the Warrior Plus Market, or you frequent JV Zoo, or you frequent some of those places, you've seen this pattern before. Somebody figures out something in a medium, right? Because a medium's pretty understand, and then they figure out how to generate recurring income, and then they then sell an information product teaching other people what they're doing. right? And they can be an information product, it can be a coaching program, whatever it is. But basically, not only are they profiting from the place where they generate the recurring income, but then they also teach others what they're doing, right? And so people who can figure out a medium and can make a medium work, the next step up is to then teach other people what they're doing. And typically, the question that people get was, well, if it's working so well for you, why would you teach somebody else? Well, you teach somebody else because that can be just as lucrative as the income you're generating. But basically, you're trying to generate you're generating income. You're getting proof that you did it. You've generated recurring income, and now you want to teach other people, and a lot of people will be interested. Again, a lot of people will be interested in learning the medium, right? Because it's easy to understand, but not everybody's going to make it work. About 20% of the people who enter a medium-based business model will find the business model that works and make it work. And then you can license what you teach, right? And some people will then sell private label rights, or they'll sell resale rights, or maybe they'll just do a licensing program, depending on the nature of your customer. You might decide, okay, I'm going to license other people. I'm going to give them the ability to then teach what I have taught other people, right? You set up some kind of rights arrangement, or maybe you sell PLR, you sell resale rights, or whatever the case is. Those are the three levels of profit. And you're going to see that over and over again. You probably recognize that people are doing this, right? And it's not a mystery, and nobody's trying to fool anybody, but that's the way the business opportunity space works. You find a medium, so you're not necessarily building a business, right? A medium is not a business unless you make it one. So in other words, let's say you figure out SEO. You figure out how to generate an income SEO. You figure out how to generate recurring income. That's not a business per se. And I don't say that to insult anybody who does SEO. I know that there are SEO companies. What I'm saying is that when a solopreneur understands and learns how to do SEO, social media, YouTube, they build a business around the medium. It's not necessarily they're building a business or a brand, right? So important distinction to make. Now, for the 80%, right? So if you feel like, well, I've done the 20%, I've done all those things. It does not appear to be that I'm the 20% that can make a medium work, because I've jumped around, I've done all these things, none of them have really stuck, right? So you've tried a bunch of things and none of them really stuck. All that means is that you may not be able to be the kind of person to make a medium work. Doesn't mean that you can't be successful online. Doesn't mean that you can't create an income online. It just means you have not been able to make, a medium work. I remember seeing, and those of you who are runners, and I'm going to butcher this analogy fairly. I'm gonna butcher it brutally, but I think you're going to understand. I remember very early on learning that there was a difference between people who sprint and people who can run long distance, and they called it fast twitch and slow twitch. Now, there's probably a lot of easier ways to explain that, but that basically people who can be successful as a marathon runner, they don't have the same musculature, they don't have the same makeup, they don't have the same wiring, they don't have the same attitude as a person who can make it as a sprinter, right? It's called fast twitch and slow twitch. Now, again, I probably butchered that analogy, but I think you understand the point. You may not be a medium person. All right. A medium person is kind of like fast twitch, right? They can kind of get in something, make it work, get out of something, teach other people how to do it, get out of it, right? When it stops working. That may not be your thing. And for some people, if you stay there long enough, you just get too disoriented to try something that's really going to work. It takes really building something that you understand, right? And so I'm gonna kind of explain this to you the best way that I understand it. When you build a brand around your expertise, that's different. It's different than fast switch. So if you're looking at Warrior Plus, JV Zoo, and you're looking at other people, you're thinking, well, man, they're successful. They're doing these product launches. They're getting affiliates, and they're doing these big things, and they're generating all this income. Why can't I do it, or why haven't I done it? Well, in some cases, you may be a slow twitch person, right? Doesn't mean you move slow. It just means that you may be able to make a medium work, or you haven't found the right one. And basically, as an expertise marketer, you find an area where you can generate proof. So in other words, you go to the marketplace, you do something that you understand, and you build around that. right? So you're approaching this more as a business. You're approaching this from the area of your expertise. You're generating proof because you know what you're talking about, because you have experience, because you can do things that other people can't, and you go to the marketplace and you bring that to them, and then you're able to generate a recurring income in that way. Now, I will say this, right? It sounds a lot like when I'm explaining this to you, it probably sounds like I'm talking to you about an influencer business model, social media influencer. And that is not what I'm necessarily talking about. You can be an influencer if you have expertise, right? You can build a brand and you can influence people and and it can look like an influencer. It doesn't have to be that. Just so that you'll know, what's the difference between an influencer and what I'm talking about? Well, an influencer doesn't necessarily have to have expertise. And that's not an insult to influencers, right? So it's a, if you understand how to build and generate an audience, then that's not a small thing, right? And so an influencer can move an audience, right? That's what an influencer does. So you may not have to have a particular area of expertise, or you might be able to generate an audience in an area in which it's totally different than your area of expertise, right? But that's what an influencer does. An expertise marketer is different than an influencer, right? You build an audience. The audience has come to you based on the fact that you know something they want, right? You can teach them something. And sometimes you're not even a great teacher, but you're just the only one that knows something pretty well, and you can solve problems that people have. And people come to you because of that, right? We're talking about a totally different thing than right now than a medium-based business model. And when I say expertise, just so that you'll know, I'm not talking necessarily only about expertise. So in other words, people, right? You help people to do more than what they're capable of doing because you get them to access an area. I mean, if you're a pastor, you probably get them to access a relationship with God. Sometimes you're getting them to do more. You're a motivational speaker. You're getting them to do more than they're capable of doing, right? You inspire them. So you don't necessarily have to have you don't necessarily have to move an audience, but basically you're bringing them inspiration. And then sometimes you're just an expert, right? You just know things and you've got experience in that area. And that's what an expertise market. Now, all three of these areas, it works the same way, right? So you don't have to have any one or the other. You can do some form of all those things, but you can do entertainment and do what I'm talking about. You can inspire people and do what I'm talking about, or you can just flat out know what you're talking about more than anybody else. You can do what I'm talking about. Now, here's the deal, right? We're getting into PLR and why this matters. Here's what expertise marketers need. They need content, right? So how are you going to continually generate content to make people, basically to get people interested? So you got to be consistent, right? And prolific with your content, right? You've got to almost seem like you're everywhere. And so that's what an expertise marketer does. So an expertise marketer needs content because they need content, right? So you get, need stuff for your blog and for your podcast and for all those things. And all those things are what you share on social media. You've got to create information products, right? So when I say information products, understand again, now, if you're an entertainer, right, your information product is going to be different than somebody who's teaching people something. If you are a preacher or a pastor or someone who inspires people, your product is going to be different than somebody who just teaches people something. If you're an expertise marketer, it's not going to look like, a pastor's product. It's not going to look like a record album, right, or a stream. So it's going to look different. So it's going to look different for everybody, but you still need something that you can package and you can sell. And the pricing is going to really depend on what the unit is, but you need content for all those things. If you're a coach, right, you can be a coach in any one of those areas, and you still need to be able to give people something that will be their element. Should I use AI for this, right? So when I start talking about content, should I use AI? And so this is where I'm going to draw some distinctions, right? AI is still going to take you it's going to take you time to reflect a brand correctly, right? So you're just not going to just put just put some words into the AI and it's going to spit out, what you need for your brand correctly, right? You're going to have to work with it. Now, if you were building a medium-based business, understand something. I just explained to you what a medium-based business is. If what you're trying to do If you're one of those 20% and you were trying to build a medium-based business, you may not need PLR to do that. You may be able to do it all with AI. Now, if you were building a brand-based business, you probably do need PLR, right? Because again, it takes time to create. It doesn't take a whole lot less time to create than you think it does if you're going to reflect a brand correctly. If you're really going to be building out a USP, upsells and cross sells, it still takes time. If you're going to do it right and the thing's going to actually work in order to make it sell. When you are buying PLR, what you're buying, right, as a brand-based business, you're buying that person's reputation and that person's expertise and knowing. So let me take a step back when I'm going to explain that to you. You should be buying that person's expertise and their reputation, right? That's the way you buy PLR. So you try and figure out, well, should I buy from this person? Should I buy that person? Should I buy one that has 10,000 things in it? Well, only if you want to waste your time, right? I'm not saying that, somebody who sold you 10,000 pieces, you're not going to find something useful. My point to that is you need to buy based on reputation and expertise, because what you're doing is you're buying time. Right? If you buy 10,000 things, you don't have no idea who put it together. You don't know what the quality level is. You're just kind of hoping. You have to go through all that stuff. You need to buy based on reputation and expertise. And if you are building a brand and you are selling based on a brand, not on a medium, remember now, medium is not, it's not a business. You're doing a Kindle, SEO, something like that. But you're building out a brand. If what you're doing is you're building it based on your expertise, you are focused on positioning all of the time. Where do I fit in the marketplace? Why should people come to me? Where do I fit inside of the niche? How do I draw those distinctions? What should my content say? You're focused on those things, but you're focused on differentiating all the time. And so that's a different thing. Right? When you are a brand marketer, you're focused on positioning and your relationships. When you are a medium marketer, right? If you are marketing on a medium, right? What you are focused on is production and procedures. So in other words, you find the right person with the right procedure, whether it's YouTube, whether it's AdSense, whether it's Kindle, whether it's SEO, you find the right person with the right procedure and you follow it. Right? That's what you do. So you've got to understand whether or not you are a medium marketer or a brand marketer. And again, only 20% of the people are going to make a medium work. And if you've been hopping around from thing to thing and you've not found it yet, and it's been years, I'm going to suggest something to you right now. You need to switch over to be a brand marketer and build a brand based on some area of expertise and generate proof. Now, in general, brand-based profits, here's the difference. You will understand how the profits are made. You'll understand how the people come to you. You will understand because you built it from your area of expertise. You will understand that business model because you won't be following necessarily a formula. You will have built it organically. You will have built it based on people coming to you, either little by little or as a result of your doing an appearance. You will understand how those people come to you. And you'll be able to replicate that in ways over and over again. Brand-based profits will be profits you understand. In general, right? Now, that's not always going to be the case, but in general, medium-based profits, right? When I talk to you about medium, you never really fully, now, please don't think I'm saying something pejorative about this. I'm not. I'm just saying to you that generally, what you're doing is you're buying a procedure and you are following it. You don't necessarily know exactly how it works. You don't care how it works. You are following the procedure because if you follow the procedure, in general, you will make it work because that's the way a medium-based business model works. So if you're talking about AI, should you use it? You don't understand the business model. You don't understand how you generate profits. It just works. Then that's something you can generally use AI to do. If you are building a brand, and your reputation is on the line. You understand how the people come to you. You understand how your profits are generated. Then you probably want to use PLR instead. So you use PLR strategically, right? If you're going to be a brand-based marketer. If you've got a membership, you can use it to create sales activity, right? You can use it to get people to buy things. You can use it in your emails. one thing that I have been talking about, or that I haven't really talked a lot about, that I'm going to start talking about next week, specifically when you get things that have unrestricted rights, you should be selling them to train the trainer. Right now, I'm going to explain to that briefly what I mean. Now, again, this is a bit of an advanced concept, but if you understand PLR, you're going to get it. Um, I'm talking about when you buy something and you have the rights to give people the rights to use it. So in other words, you're not just selling them, you're not selling to the end user, you're selling to a person who will then sell to the end user, right? So how do you train? How do you use it to train the trainer? You add value to the content and you sell it inside of a shareable platform. So the ones I suggest that you take a look at are system.io, right? And you've got a URL there. You can go and take a look at the URL there, or high level. And basically, you're not going to sell the content. You're not going to sell, you're going to sell the snapshot. You're basically going to sell them a done for you system. So that's all you're doing. So you're going to, when they buy it from you, they're going to click a link. It's going to go inside of their system.io account, and you're going to sell it as that. So if it's PLR, you're going to sell it at a price that dictates that they're paying for a done for you system. So you're not going to sell it for what you bought it for. You're going to upcharge it. You're going to enhance it. You're going to make it ready for them to, when they buy it, that they can sell it. And you are basically selling the snapshot or the share code. You're not selling just the content or the sales pages. Okay, so that is it about PLR tonight. We have our servant leader PLR, which you can get at the plrshow.com/SVLDR. Right, that's our servant leader PLR, servant leadership, and that is written content. You will be able to do just about everything that we talked about here in this session. And I was going to tell you about our training on. I'll give you a URL anyway. If you're trying to put people in something like system.io, we've got content for that as well as high level. But that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'm just going to try to suggest that you get our servant leader PLR, and that's at the plrshow.com/SVLDR. Now next week, I'm going to start talking about leadership, and Laurel and I are going to be training you on building your online community and leading it. And one of the things that we have been talking about recently is that for a number of people, leadership is going to work better than personality-based stuff, right? So you may not be the kind of person that has that magnetism. You're going to draw those people, and it may make you uncomfortable that, hey, I've got to be a big persona. Right, that may not be your personality. And so what you can do is you can actually lead people once you find the right leadership tool. We're going to be teaching you some of the leadership tools that you can use on a regular basis. And I'll tell you more about that next week. So if you are here, obviously, if you're here in Central PA, we will be meeting with you next week, and look for the dates and times inside of the meetup. If you are an Ultimate Insider or you are from the PLR show, I just want to thank you for sharing and stop sharing your time and stopping out here. I hope this has been helpful for you. Hope this has been helpful and worth it for you also. And that is really about it. Let me see if there are any. I don't think there are any questions. So with that, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate y'all hanging out here. Have a great night and a pleasant tomorrow. Take care.